Boom.
Pretty good.
And we're live. Let me just set this, fix this so that we are good to go. Uh-oh. There we are. Let me get the privacy settings. Hey, Jizzo.
Yes, sir.
This is the check-in, and we're live. And as I do this right here, bro, can you give them the disclaimer real quick?
Yeah, what's up, y'all? Welcome back, man. This is the check-in. You already know we're here every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. We're slightly late, but we never miss. And we always do the disclaimer at the beginning, letting you guys know that we are not licensed therapists. We're not licensed psychologists. We pick topics. Heat Detector usually picks topics that affect men's mental health, everybody's mental health, and we talk about different options and different tools that we can use to navigate through these issues that different people might have. So today we got a really interesting topic, and I'm gonna let you introduce your topic.
Well, before we do that, the disclaimer, as he said, we're not psychiatrists, we're not therapists. We're just guys. We're on our own journey right now. You know what I mean? Of mental health. Of our own. If you got or dream of cotton candy, butterflies, unicorns, soft bunny rabbits, and you got thin skin, get the fuck off this page. All right. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're not here to talk shit about anybody, but this show is very serious. And sometimes things are said that may not be politically correct. Sometimes things, it could be heated discussions that, some people may get offended by, but we're just speaking from our honest place or our opinion. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to report us. You don't have to just go on another fucking page. Just go somewhere else with it. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, I'm the host, Heat Detector. It's my co-host, and we got a guest in the building tonight, Mr. Reggie Smokes. Thank you for coming.
No problem, man.
Let me and my co-host Jizzo in the building.
Peace to all of y'all, man, that tune in with us.
Yeah, we got people that tune in with us all the time.
E. Johnson, what up?
Yeah, shout out E. Johnson. Is he in the building right now?
He might be. Shout out to Shy City Sheba.
Yeah, Shy City Sheba.
She can
never say that.
And just everybody else that tunes in at different times. You never really know, like, what is. We never really know when we pick these topics, who it's gonna affect, who it's gonna touch. And we've been blessed enough to have verification of those things as they've happened during certain episodes where we'll be talking about a certain topic and somebody will comment and say that they're going through something like that at that very moment. So that just goes to show us that these topics, they reach everybody, and it's things that affect all of us. And this show initially started as a men's mental health podcast.
No, it didn't. That's not how it initially started.
No. So not the original form. But for those that don't know, it used to be Sunday Sit Down with the OGs. Shout out to Overton Harris, OT man, the drill sergeant, and other people that were involved. Shout out to D-Nick, who's been a regular on the show as well. He's actually certified in mental health. And through the Sunday Sit Down with the OGs, it turned into the check-in because he said, man, you know what, we're really just checking in.
No, that's not how it happened.
Oh shit. Well, go ahead, bro. Give them the how it happened.
It was Sunday Sit Down with the OGs, which was supposed to be bridging the gap between old hip hop heads and the younger generation of hip hop heads. And I was having a fucked up day, and we were supposed to go on live, if you remember. And then I didn't want to do the show. I was going through some shit. I was pissed off at the world, whatever, because we would do the pre-show kind of to put it in a term, we do a pre-show for like a half an hour, just make sure all the technical shit and everything, what we're going to talk about, whatever. And we ended up talking about that because I was in a real fucked up ass mood. Like my whole shit, it felt like the world was crushing on me. And you guys convinced me to go ahead and do the show because I didn't want to do it. So we ended up doing the show, the Sunday Sit Down with the OGs, and everything that we talked about started to spill into the regular to that show. And at that time, when we were doing Sunday Sit Down, nobody was really watching. And when the whole topic of being in a fucked up mood and being, not having somebody to talk to and everything became the topic, you know what I'm saying? It changed. Something happened in within that show that people started watching. People started commenting. People were like, "What the fuck? Oh yeah, I'm feeling like this," and everything else. And then the next day is when I called you and I said, "You know what? We're changing the show and we're going to call it the check-in because everybody needs a place to check in." And from there, it's morphed into like the check-in was about mental health, but we were still like we didn't know jack shit about jack shit, and we were just doing it and going by like what we were feeling and what we were thinking, in hopes of helping somebody that was going through those types of things. And it has morphed into a men's mental health show, and we do have a counselor that jumps in with us who started jumping in once the name was changed and we started going through all of these motions and talking about all the different things, and then ourselves as well. The show changed us. I know it changed me. I know it changed Jizzle. I know like just how we attack things, how we see things, how we maneuver with friends, family, and how we deal with ourselves, how we deal with things that we've had happen to us in our lives, or things that are happening to us in real time. When we're processing all this information, all these things, all these emotional triggers. I mean, all these emotional things and stuff like that, which leads us to the topic today. Topic today is triggers. Let's talk about triggers and what those mean, and then how they affect you.
Real quick, I looked up because I like to look things up and type things into Google, man. So I looked up, is mental health important? So the answer that I got from CDC.gov was mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act.
Right.
It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. So if you're out there thinking that it might not be important that you talk about it, or it might not be important that you deal with certain situations, it very much is important.
100%.
So I'm assuming when you say triggers, you're talking about just in every aspect, right? Because we could like point out certain like specific triggers, or are we just saying like triggers in general? All triggers.
All triggers. I'm just going to say all triggers, because what happened was I was out with someone, and our relationship hasn't been the greatest lately. And being aware, like, you know what I'm saying, like going through all of this mental health stuff and becoming more and more aware of self, you start to realize and recognize things, And one of the things that I recognized was, as we were sitting and talking and things were happening around me, 1 second I'd be cool, and then the next second, bless you.
Excuse me.
In the next second, I could feel my body literally tensing the fuck up, and then I could see that my thought process was going somewhere else, and then I'd like take a breather and shit, and I'm like, wait, where in the fuck did that come from? And try to figure out like what was happening. That I instantly my body got tense and I got upset, and then that just kept happening, not me just tensing up, but then there was other parts of it where I got anxious, and now my heart's pumping, and I feel like I'm losing my breath, you know what I'm saying? And these things were happening, and I'm trying to process this shit and keep my fucking composure. And what I realized during that time, like on the way home, as I realized like there were things happening around me, certain shit, people were in a restaurant, and things that people were saying were triggering thoughts subconsciously, thoughts that I had from things that have happened to me, you know what I mean? Violent shit, you name it, whatever, there's a gamut of shit. But I realized that I was hearing things, seeing things that were fucking triggering the shit out of me, not to mention the person that I was with, we were already on rocky shit. So with that, I was getting triggered by the conversation about certain things. I was getting triggered by the outer surroundings, and the shit was fucking with me. I ain't even gonna lie, it was fucking with me harsh. Like I literally felt my body like tense all the way the fuck up, and then once my body tensed up, then I started having these real fucking violent ass thoughts of smacking. Remember when I talked about that shit before? Like when we went to the zoo, and I was having a fucking anxiety attack, and at the same time I was angry as fuck, and I was just looking at people and thinking, man, I'm just gonna run over here and kick this motherfucker in the face. You know what I'm saying? And or just punch the shit out of this motherfucker and just hope that like a security guard will come or somebody will come and like put me out my motherfucking misery. No, that's real shit. You know, and those are the thoughts that were going through my head. And that was leading my body to go into all kinds of like, I was having a panic attack. I was fucking flipping the fuck out. But my outer was more like, it was just, you know, they didn't know what was going on with me. They just thought, he's being whatever in the fuck. But on the inside, man, I was visualizing doing some shit to people. And I was physically feeling the ramifications of being all of these triggers and all this shit that was happening. And that shit really fucked me up. And it just made me think, you know, with the stuff that happened the other day, it just really made me think about, man, what can we do? What can a person do about triggers? How can a person recognize them, recognize what it is that's triggering them, and recognize those responses and where they actually come from? Because I think that's important to find out exactly where they come from. Because even if a person triggers you like by cursing you out, it may not be that person that gives you that initial, the person that did it is going to give you the initial reaction, but it's other stuff. You know what I'm saying? That yelling and that screaming could be because you were yelled and screamed at as a child all your fucking life, and that's all. And that shit pissed you off all the time, but you never had a voice, and you don't. There's a lot to it. In other words, you know what I'm saying? And because of that, it's like I just thought it would be a good topic to like talk about and discuss and see what you guys think. You know, do you have triggers? Do you know what a trigger is? Do you know, like, what about you, Jizzo? Because you triggering me right now with that fucking phone. Like, for real.
Go ahead, Reggie.
All right. I mean, yeah, I think we all have triggers, man, whether or not we want to admit it to ourselves. I think everybody does. I know I have mines. But I think, as you said, the identification of the triggers is
Right.
very important and you have to be able to be honest enough with yourself to be able to do that, because some people, oftentimes through pride, because as men, and particularly as men of color, we often
Right.
have this culture of like being tough or like macho or like, yo, I'm cool, like I'm good, like I'm good, like, you know what I'm saying, like, that kind of sort of thing where we are kind of taught to kind of just shrug stuff off and just keep it moving.
Right.
So a lot of times that'll be to a lot of guys' detriment. I've seen that myself, where they're too prideful to admit to themselves that something is a trigger. And instead of saying, you know what, this is something that's a trigger for me, I should like stay away from that or take
Right.
precautions to like deal with that, or maybe like, oh man, no, I'm gonna be good. Like, no, it don't bother me, knowing damn well, bro,
Yeah.
that does bother you. Like, you need to be honest enough with yourself to do that. So that's a big thing. But once you do that, then it's taking the steps to either like try to take precaution against those things or avoidance or whatever you feel like you need to do, depending on the level of how exactly triggered you are.
Right. I don't think avoidance is a good thing to do, because I think avoidance then leads to other shit. Tackling it head on. I mean, shit. I mean, what the fuck? I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I know that it's important. I know, like, I was talking to somebody about it, and they were saying, the fact that you're aware is a big key factor. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we're not aware of these things that are happening to us.
That's half the battle, really.
Yeah. So becoming aware of it, then you go, okay, I know this, something triggered me. Because a lot of times we don't know that we're even, so the fact that I understood, well, wait a minute, I'm being triggered, instead of having this visceral response, you know what I'm saying? But now it's like, okay, what was it and why? You know what I'm saying? Because for me, that's like the big question. Like, okay, so.
Well, I mean, well, for me, to define the word triggered in my mind, it just translates to any sort of stimuli, anything that triggers an emotional response in you,
Right.
right? Typically, a negative emotional
Right.
response in you.
Right.
So, stimuli could be any sight, taste, touch, smell,
Sound.
sound, anything that that you see. It could be any one of those things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It could be a certain environment. Some people step into a strip club and they fucking freak the fuck out because perhaps something traumatic happened to
Right.
them in that setting.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's being around a certain kind of person. It could be any kind
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, identification to that is definitely the first step, and that's half the battle because you can't fight an enemy that you can't see,
Yeah.
and you can't fix something that you're not aware of. So
It's very true. And that's a great way to put it. You know what I'm saying? Because even when I was told, like, yo, the fact that you're aware of it, is like, that's a big deal.
yeah,
But to me, I was already looking beyond the being aware of it part because, like, yeah, clearly I'm aware because I understood that there was something going on. But besides the superficial shit that I could obviously go, oh, okay, that's because somebody said that. You know what I mean? Or because I'm sitting in this fucking chair pointing in this direction or whatever the fuck it may be. To me, getting to the real root of it was more important. Like, I'm aware. Yeah, big fucking deal. I need to know what that real shit is.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I need to figure out, like, that was what was going on in my mind at the time. I need to know what that is right there because that is going to help me more so than the other shit. But I guess, being aware of it is part of the whole thing. But
So I think what I hear you saying is not only do you need to be aware of the trigger, but you need to be aware of why it triggers you.
yeah,
So
because it could be it. Okay, so
Yeah.
like it could be any fucking thing. I said to Jizzle just a second ago, you're triggering me by your phone. Low key was, but it's not Jizzle in the phone.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
That's what I was gonna, and I was, like kindly waiting my turn, but I was gonna say, like, just the way that my phone usage triggers you, I think like the biggest outcome is like how we initially deal with it. So did it how bad does it control you, or do you just say I'm not gonna let that control me because I have to do that in my day-to-day shit? I have to say, like, the dumb fucking cashier, excuse my language, the dumb cashier register at Dollar Tree.
Right.
She got a fucking attitude. I don't know what happened to her before that. I got there and she's talking to me like I ain't shit. I can decide if I'm gonna let that shit trigger me because I've had people talk to me like I ain't shit. People I've been with, friends of mine. So I'm already ready for that trigger. If I want to, I could let that shit trigger me. But I'm also deciding, like, man, let that shit affect me.
Right.
Like you saw my phone, that shit should have not affected you because you don't know what I'm doing on the phone. So
That's
it
true,
should
but
have.
it wasn't. I just, like I said, it wasn't you. Now, I understand that.
It was something else, but
It's something else.
But I don't think everybody's looking for that knowledge, though. I don't think everyone, because like Reggie said, wait, explain it to me, because he wasn't sure if that's what you were saying. But I don't think everybody is looking for that. I think
no.
some people see the ramifications of their actions. So okay, you said you were out and you were out with someone you weren't getting along with recently, and things started to trigger you. But you also got to think about the ramifications of that. Like, all right, things might trigger me, and I might could just be act like this or act like that, or for the sake of this moment in this situation that I'm in, just don't act out. Because we all go through the moments where we're not up to it, like we're just not feeling it, like and fucking we're just waiting for somebody to say some shit
Well,
to
no,
us.
but see, but the thing is, it wasn't just a mental thing. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't just me mentally going, I don't like what the fuck I'm hearing. You know what I'm saying? I was having a physical response, and it wasn't all at once. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And there were moments where I wasn't even paying attention to that person, and was just like looking somewhere, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I'm anxious. You know what I'm
And
saying?
you can't control that, and that's okay to know
you
that.
can.
I mean, look, sometimes you can't. Like, look, I'll be personal. Today I was driving this way. I take a certain street that I won't say numbers, but I take a certain street that goes across from my house over here to the studio. And in between there, it's about 6 miles. And in between there, halfway, there is a cemetery. And, today's Mother's Day. Rest in peace to my mom and everyone that's here, man, that has a mother that's gone, man. Rest in peace to them in heaven. You know, Heavenly Mother's Day to them.
Yes.
And I saw the cemetery, and bro, the cemetery was full of flowers. All the plots, man, had something, balloons, flowers. It was a sea of flowers. And bro, like I at first it didn't affect me. I looked at it and I'm like, all right, cool. And I breathed in and then I kept driving. And maybe like 5 minutes later, that shit just hit me, dog, on the way here. I still had like 10 minutes to get here. And I cried for like the next 5 minutes because I was just like, it triggered me.
Right.
I wasn't ready for that trigger. In my mind, I thought I was cool. I was like, man, I've been through this already. It's been 21 years or 22 years, whatever is it's been something like that, 22 years. I'm good. But nah, man, like without even realizing it, 5 minutes, you know, a few minutes later, I'm driving on the street crying because it really did trigger me. So
Right.
I kind of couldn't control that. So I understand and lament with what you're saying about not being able to really control at that moment that it physically took you over. That shit that happened to me, that was a I had no control over that. I just began to cry.
And that's I mean, not I was going to say there's a simple answer to that, but it's not that simple. But that goes back to one of the shows that we did about grieving, when you never really had a chance to grieve. So when you see the flowers and you see the shit, and then you're cool for a minute, and then it hits you. I mean, I'm no therapist, you know, that we say it in the show, but it just seems like it would be, to me, it seems like it would be because you haven't properly grieved. And I say that because there are times where I think about my brother, and he's been gone for a long time, and I know I didn't properly grieve him and still haven't. And as much as I do, I do my best. I try like to not think of it. I do, but it fucking triggers the fuck out of me when, especially if somebody talks about their brother and how much fun they had with him or whatever, and shit like that. And I'm aware of it. I'm aware of the fact that I haven't properly grieved my brother. I'm aware of the fact that I haven't properly grieved my mother. And
I think it's at different stages though, right? Like for different people, because like when I lost my mom, I was 16. When you lost your brother, I believe you were in your mid-20s, correct?
I was in my early 20s.
In your early 20s. So
Yeah.
I think in the different age gaps, I think it's maybe, do you agree that it's different kind of grieving? If you're, let's say you're 48 or you're 55 or something and you lose a parent, is that different kind of grieving than a 16-year-old losing their mom? Like it's got to be different. Like
no, I mean grieving is grieving. Like my nephew, that was his father, and he doesn't remember his father. And the thing about it is that still fucks with him. His father's gone.
What triggers him?
Just even having conversations about his father.
Does him seeing you be a father to your son
at times
trigger him? Because
at times,
and I don't mean to get personal.
No, but I just said
like,
at times it does. Right? At times it does, and then there's times where he sees me as his father.
But thank God that you're a father figure, and you're probably able to help him deal with some of those triggers, kind of knowing that he got you, like you're there, like
yeah. Oh, he knows it. Oh, 100%.
Not his biological father, but you raised him since he was little. You know him, like you know what I'm saying. But other people might not have those situations and are dealing with triggers. Like me, I didn't have like another mom that replaced my mom.
And
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
so I still got to deal with that when I see someone like with their mom. I see like guys my age, 40, walking their mom at the indoor mall at the swap meet or something. I think about that shit, bro.
Yeah,
that shit fucking breaks me. It's a trigger, but for the sake of my mental health, I purposely fucking choose sometimes to just put it off. I don't know if it's an Aquarius thing, as some people have said, but I just purposely choose to turn that shit off. I won't deal with it. I won't confront it. That's what I try to do today. I try to do that today in the car. I saw it, and I saw the cemetery and people sitting at their mom's graves, and I just breathed in. I kept driving, but I literally, a few minutes later, couldn't control it.
Man, I think different people's reaction to triggers is just dependent upon, you know, their level of emotional control, you know, their level of...
No. It's no.
Among other things, but
like if you a trigger's a trigger.
I'll talk about it. Let's talk about a relationship trigger. So we talked about in the.
Well, I want to, before we do that, real quick, like, because I want to say something that you talked about. Okay, so like even with my nephew, right? Seeing him, as much as I love to see him and be around him,
trigger.
It triggers the dog shit out of me because I see my brother in him.
That's crazy.
And I love him like he's my own son.
Have you ever seen him and laid eyes on him and began to cry?
Yes.
And I'll tell you why I'm saying that,
Yes.
because a friend of my mom's that was there when she was when I was little and was there for many years when I was a little kid. When she's seen me now as an adult, as soon as she lays eyes on me, she fucking cries.
Yeah.
I could just be
100%.
walking up with a smile like, "Hey," and she will immediately begin to cry. So yeah, that's a trigger, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, shit,
100%.
that shit triggers her.
Yeah.
Um,
So you were saying about the relationship. My bad.
just about the relationship, about how we spoke about it on the last episode, as far as not being able to deal, how we talk about it's, dealing with toxic relationships and how hard it is to deal with your first healthy relationship. And there's triggers in there. We spoke
Yeah.
about it. It's, let's say, oh girl, and there's a guy, and her ex he never hit her, but he used to fucking yell at her at full, like, full power of his chest. So now she's with the new guy, and he just raised his voice a little bit. And boom, there's the trigger, like back to a fight. She thinks she's back in that situation. It's fight or flight. Like,
Mm-hmm.
have we even mentioned like a solution, like a tool? Like, what do we do with these triggers, bro? Like, I know we talked about all the triggers, but
There are tools.
what do we do with that shit?
One of the main ones.
There are tools.
The moment you, the moment you
Breathe.
recognize it, breathing.
OT, count to 3. What is it? Count to 5?
No, you just breathe. Deep,
Just fucking
slow
breathe.
breaths. Yeah, as long as you need. There ain't no time limit on it. You know what I mean? You got to just literally stop what you're saying, stop what you're doing, and breathe. I know that when I was having that anxiety attack, which was causing other physical responses, I had to literally sit there, stop eating, and just breathe. Slow my heart rate down, slow my everything down, just slow the room down so I could get my thoughts under control. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, bro. But you were saying? Tools.
Right. Yeah, there are tools. That's one of them. You know what I'm saying? Like breathing techniques and like things like that. It depends. You know what I'm saying on what you're dealing with in particular, but oftentimes it involves like a support system, a person you can call. You know what I'm saying? Somebody you can lean
Redirecting
on.
your thinking.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that you can say, hey, look, I'm in a bad place right now. Like I need somebody to kind of vent to or listen to me, or that's what friends are for. A family is for, different things like that. If you have a support system, if you're blessed to have that, obviously not everyone has that.
Everyone does have that with the check-in, bro.
The chat, I was just gonna say, I took the words right out of my mouth. I'm trying to give you a little dap right there.
Yeah, man, they got that. That's why we tell people, bro. Sometimes if you're going through some shit, man, and we'll get to you right now, brother. I see you with the mic. Sometimes we're going through some shit, and we feel like we might not have somebody, bro. As minuscule as it sounds, and maybe as cliche as it may sound, because sometimes I think it might sound like we're being cliche, but seriously, bro, y'all got somebody in us over here that y'all could talk to. You could always get in the comments. We'll get you on.
100%.
We'll get you on the phone. If you want to be on video, we'll get you on the video. We want y'all to talk about it, bro. And there's no reason that you should feel like you don't have anybody. Because I mean,
Right.
I don't know. I feel extremely blessed, bro, to be a part of. For those that don't know, we're filming live at Unwrap Studios, and if y'all want to support that, Cash App # Heat Detector, we're gonna put it on the screen for you guys, to support the show and all the shows that we do here. And there's a lot I won't mention it now. Shout out Whoopty Whoop, Unwrap, Trash Tales, Shy City Cypher, everything, man. But please donate to the studio. But I feel a comfort, man, like when I'm here at the house with y'all, because like in and out, sometimes one is in and out, one is here or there, but it's like a family here, bro. And that shit like probably helps me to avoid certain triggers, like it's there's lonely people out there, bro. And I'm blessed to say that I'm not, man, that I'm in a circle of people that fuck with me and that'll respond to me, and we'll talk back and forth serious if we have to, and if not, we'll fuck around when it's time to.
Yeah. Shout out to that, man. We love you over here, man. You already know that, man. You are family to us. You know what I'm saying? You want to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I was gonna touch on what Reggie said about like people. Not a lot of people have people. Mm-hmm. I feel like everybody has somebody, but not everybody just chooses to use the people that they have. Like
that's true.
I just feel like for me, for instance, sometimes when I go through things, when I feel like I should reach out to someone to deal with it, I get stubborn and prideful, and I feel like, nah, I can just do it myself. Or I have a feeling of this person might not understand what I'm going through. And I feel that a lot of people kind of have those things, and that's why they don't go to people and open up
Let me
to
can I
other
ask
people like that.
can I ask you something about what you're talking about? You're like I said here, the situation here at the studio, we're blessed to be amongst brothers, bro. Like we're blessed to be amongst brothers here and have like a circle, right? Do you still feel like that sometimes, even having that circle, that you can't come to the circle and talk?
To an extent, I'm a very private person, man. Like I don't really like going and telling people like what I have going on and stuff like that. Um, and I think that it has to do with what he said earlier about, the experiences you go through and like traumas that you go through in life. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of like, I was raised by women, but in their eyes, the man needs to, man up. So there wasn't really a lot of like avenues for me to really open up to what I had to, if I was really going through something like that. So I would go through it myself. You know what I mean? And so with that being said, I'm starting to learn that it's easier when you open up to somebody, but at the same time, due to like things that I've gone through with my past, with men and women, you know what I'm saying? I don't I don't really open up like that.
That's kind of a trigger too, right? If we're talking about triggers in some form, that's a trigger too. He already knows, like, he feels like a lot of us feel like, man, I already done been through like the ringer with certain situations, so I'm not like, I'm just not gonna go all in that. Like,
Shit, for some people, even talking about something is a fucking trigger.
Yeah, I mean, like
yeah,
for me, like I'll tell you what a huge trigger is for me, is when people bring up therapy, and like I'll bring up a thing that happened to me when I was in therapy. I'm not gonna say my name, say anyone's name, just gonna say a story or whatever. But I used to go to counseling because my mom left. Well, shipped me off at a young age, and when she was on drugs and shit. So I went and talked to a counselor, and I was kind of going through like these. I was kind of going through like a lot of crazy shit in the place that I was living at, like getting abused, getting told I was worthless, and like all types of crazy ass shit that you shouldn't be telling like a fifth grader or a fourth grader. You know what I'm saying? And so like when I opened up to the counselor and like told him, all the things that was going on, he, said he was going to help me, blah, 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 blah. Well, he brought my godmom in the room and basically ganged up on me with her and like called me a liar and all this other types of stuff. And so like for me, when it comes to like therapy and talking to someone, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, you know what I mean? Like it's hard for me to do that shit
because it's triggering
a professional who was professionally supposed to be that
Support
guidance,
system.
that's you know what I'm saying, that person I can lean on, knowingly I didn't have anyone, knowing my situation, fuck me basically.
Mhm.
Pardon my French, but you know what I mean. So, and going back to the men's mental health thing, I feel like that's with a lot of men though. A lot of people don't know this. I think it's like over 70% of men get abused by women, and they don't even go to the police and talk to them about it. You know what I'm saying?
Because it was,
Like domestic violence. There's more
Yeah.
domestic violence with men getting beat up by women than there are women getting beat up by men. I'm not trying to start. I'm not trying to stir. I'm not trying to stir anything.
Without the numbers.
There's numbers. We can look it up. It's proven. Men don't talk about it. You know what I mean? And I feel like that goes with the whole thing that I was saying earlier about growing up. Men had to be a certain way. Like we were told to be a certain way. You know what I mean? So we don't open up. We don't go and run to the cops for help. We just try to deal with it with ourselves.
Different things were acceptable at different times. Like we had, like we just had our guest that was on, and something that happened in her era that was acceptable back then would not be acceptable to be cancelable now. So I think when we're dealing with mental health, it's like, all right, maybe back then like certain things were being able to slide, but it's like now, you know,
I I have a different, like, in that case in general, what he's talking about. Um, I think people get the wrong idea what therapy is. Um, they're there to help you, yeah, true, but they don't have the answers. You know what they do is they give you fucking tools. Now, where that therapist may have failed was by not giving not only him the proper tools, but the person that was brought in there as well.
mm-hmm.
And it may have felt like he was being ganged up on, but it's not. It just not all therapists are fucking good. Not all therapists should be therapists, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure that's been proven. But because at any point where it got out of hand, the therapist should have been able to reel it back in, calm the situation, or give that point in that moment, that time or whatever, for this person to say things, this person to say things, and then help them to understand why these things are happening, or why this person says this negative shit all the time, to help this fourth grader understand that stuff. Again, if the therapist failed you, there's other therapists out there. Therapy is good, period. And even talking to people is therapy. Talking is one of the tools, because suppression, holding these things down and holding these things back, and that is going to fuck with that's going to fuck with your mentality. That's going to fuck with your mental health, because eventually they will bubble over.
Yeah, and it's gonna it definitely, and that's like a trigger too. And like, I just want to ask you a question. You were just talking, but you passed the mic. Does that situation trigger you with your own children? If you have children, does that situation trigger you like with your children?
What was the
speaking about like having to talk, speaking about like being in fourth grade and having to talk to the therapist and then bring in another person, and the fact that you had to talk to them. Now in your situation, if you have kids, does it trigger you to like want to do things different? And the only reason I ask that is because in my personal situation, I see like the things that my dad did, and I'm like, fuck, it's always like on my mental, like about like, I don't want to like do that or be a certain way with my kids, like to change that. That's what I'm saying. Like, does that trigger you in that way?
Yeah, I feel like, well, with me, I try to be different from what my parents and what they did with me, because I can talk all night about my childhood and stuff like that. But there's a lot of things in my childhood that was just, I look at now, this is not right. So yeah, I do my parenting differently based off of what and how I was taught, you know what I'm saying, growing up and shit. Like, for instance, like growing up, my family would lie to me all the time about like the dumbest shit. And so I tend to keep it like 100 with my kids and like real solid.
That's dope.
Whether or not, some people would say like it could make me look like in a bad light or whatever. But I just keep it 100.
But you're being a friend with them, and I think that's important. 100%. Like with the kids, if you like be friends and not be. I mean, I know they say be the parent, don't be the friend, but also like have a mix of that of being the friend in there too.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get real personal because this just happened recently. Like I said, I'm not gonna disclose any names, but it was my daughter. My daughter is seeing a therapist, and I encourage her to do that because. Just because it was bad for me doesn't mean it's gonna be a bad experience for her. Those people that don't know, I'm a half glass full type of a nigga, so that's why I think this way. Let me go ahead and pass it over there. But anyways, my daughter went to therapy and stuff, and there was a big storm in her area, and I don't know the extent of what she's going through or anything like that. But she talked about how if she could just fall out of the window right now and die, everything would be okay. And she said that the only reason why that she doesn't do that is because I tell her, she remembers me telling her, like, just because you have a bad day today doesn't mean that you can have it, that you're gonna have a bad day tomorrow. You can always have a better day. Just because you had a bad day an hour ago doesn't mean the rest of the day is over with. Like, better things can come, type things. And then she told her therapist that's what keeps her going. So, like, I'm getting kind of emotional because that's my oldest, that's my baby. But it just goes to show, like, keeping the G is cool. You know what I mean? So yeah, my experiences and what I've gone through shaped me into the parent that I am today. Yeah, 100%.
And that's real shit, bro. And I feel you so much, bro, because in that same breath, like, that's why I, said I'm not gonna deal drugs. That's why I said I'm not gonna be on fucking drugs, because I already went through enough turmoil and fucking death in my life to just be like, all right, I'm cool. I'm not gonna do those things. And that shit's a trigger for me. I see that shit. I see people doing that shit, and I'm just like, all right. Like, it reminds me of, like, all right, don't do that, because life's fucked up. And there's tons of people dead that I know that fucking made stupid ass decisions because their life was haunting them. And so, but those triggers, it just depends how you act. Some people pull through them and get through them and get through life. And unfortunately, other people, it takes over them. So, use the tools that you got, the conversations, and spark this convo with one of your homies, man. Talk with somebody else. Like, it's cool, man. I'm sure somebody else wants to talk about that shit too. It's nothing shameful. Like, here we are on camera, and when we're talking about it, that's what the check-in's all about.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the stuff that we're hearing right now. Because it's triggering to me, you know what I mean? And I don't really like throwing that word around a lot, because I think it's overused a lot for some people, and for, like, I'm not gonna say some people. I think it's overused in society now as an excuse for behavior and shit. Not saying everybody's like that, but there are. But it is a thing to be triggered, and to listen, like, even listening to you talk about death and drugs and shit is triggering for me. My mom was a drug addict and alcoholic for almost her fucking entire life, and that affected me. It affected me to not do drugs. It affected me when I see shit. It affects me when I think about my mother. It affects me when I think about my kids. It affects me about every fucking thing. You know what I mean? And those things trigger shit, because that shit triggers my thoughts of when she was high and and shit, and the things that I saw, the things that were happening, the violence and everything that was going on. So and then that gives me that thought. That was one of the things that I figured out, like, when I was with this person, that there was something going on. There's somebody having a conversation in the booth next, and somebody said some shit about like drugs and somebody else or something, and how they were gonna fuck somebody up, and that shit literally made my body tense up, and literally made me, like, I didn't understand where that thought and why I got like that initially was, but when I went back and thought about it and processed it and everything, because I really wanted to know what exactly was triggering me, because I was already being fucked up by this shit that was going on and with this person, but there was other shit going on too. It wasn't just that, you know what I'm saying, that I had me feeling in some type of way. There were other things. So when I thought about that shit, and I'm just like, wow, like, that, something that simple would seem to be that simple, a conversation that's in another booth about some shit, clicked in my subconscious and made my body react and get tense and start having these thoughts of like fucking somebody up or doing whatever. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like as I'm sitting there while it's happening, I don't know that that's what it was at that moment. I didn't know what it was, but I was sitting there and I was thinking, whoa, whoa, whoa. Cause I could feel my body was tensed up and I started getting pissed off and I started thinking all kinds of shit. And I remember thinking, where in the fuck is this coming from? You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm sitting here, and even though the conversation was cool, but being this person that have been going through shit, that didn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't mad at this person in front of me or anything like that. So me tensing up and getting mad and wanting to be violent and shit didn't make any fucking sense. You know what I'm saying? And my thought process was all over the place. I was like, yo, like thinking like, what the fuck? Why am I angry right now? Why am I like literally like tense the fuck up? And it took, a minute to really recognize that. Well, it took like 24 hours or whatever. But after thinking about it and after processing it, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so now the next step after that is like, okay, well, what do I do to when this happens? Do I just redirect my thoughts and go to like a air quotes a happy place? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Do I breathe? You know what I'm saying? Do I excuse myself from the situation? Do I just leave and walk away and go somewhere and get my thoughts together? Like it landed me on this. Okay, we know that now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I say we, I'm talking about myself. You know what I'm saying? We
No
know
doubt.
this now. So now what do we do when we feel this happening so that we understand what it is? We understand what the trigger is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we understand what this trigger does. Okay, so what do we do? Like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do, Heat? What do we do? Do we breathe? Do we walk out? Do we do, whatever in the fuck? And then after that, what do we do to get rid of that fucking trigger?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
True.
Because now I've recognized the trigger. But that's still only part of the solution.
What
know what I'm saying?
what makes me stop and not let the trigger get to me is knowing like what the outcome could be if I let the trigger get to me. So like let's say in things in my relationship and that shit's triggering me and I already thought about it, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna let that trigger me because it's gonna make life fucking worse. Like,
Right.
I don't want to argue about that. Like, let me just shut the fuck up. I'm not gonna argue about that. Like, I'm gonna chill out. I'll do something else.
But that's what we were saying.
Yeah.
So recognizing all of that, yeah, that's cool. Breathing and doing all that is cool. But no, once we recognize exactly what the fucking problem is, right? So I understand now what that one in particular moment, I understand what that moment was, and I understand where it came from, right? So the question is, what do I do with that now? Because if I don't do something about that, I will get triggered again.
All you can do
And
is just
again,
say stop
and
tripping
again.
over it.
No, I think you may be missing the point. Is that once you recognize the trigger, right? You recognize that
What it is.
this girl is yelling. You don't want to yell. You're not with that. Whatever. You breathe. You take it easy. Now, that's part of it, right? Part of you recognizing that shit. Now, the other part, it can't be just her that's triggering you. There's other things. Okay, so now let's say you recognize that part. Boom. Oh, it's because I'm not saying you in general. I'm just hypothetically throwing the shit. So you say, oh, it's because this happened and this happened in my life at this point in time. And this is what it narrows down to. All right. Now, once you recognize that, what the problem is, what do you do to fix that problem? Because if you don't fix that problem, it doesn't matter who you're in front of. It doesn't matter how many times you breathe. It's still going to be a reoccurring thing.
Like for me, okay, so to answer that, so for me it'd be like, all right, the thing that I'll just talk about me, like one of my triggers, the thing that would trigger me, it'd be like a woman like yelling, right? Because in my last relationships, you know, I've dealt with situations here and there where it's been like they're yelling and shit, right? And they're like going crazy, and like that shit'll trigger me. So, you know, now in the future, I know that I don't want to be a part of that. Like if that shit was to happen, I already know what it is. The trigger is now in the future is that I've been through it before. And what do I do with that? I just say, well, shit, like I can't let that shit, you know I have my boundaries and I can't let it control me. I'm not going to let it.
Right. But that's you're talking about what I'm getting to, and what I was alluding to is that, or not alluding to, but what I said was, okay, so you recognize only part of it, because there's something else besides the past relationship that actually triggered you before, is what I'm saying.
Is there? I mean,
Could be, and it doesn't necessarily have
could-
to be that somebody yelled
Nah.
at you. It could be a situation.
I
where
was never in relationships like that before. So no,
I'm not talking
for
about
me,
the relationship.
For me, it
bro.
would just be relationships. I know what the trigger is. The only time I've been shit yelled at or been in situations like that has been with someone that I've been with. So for me, I know what the trigger is. I don't think that past that there's like a trauma that's in my younger years, or I know what it is. I know that it's, as an adult, I was in relationships where we were loud with each other and yelling at each other, and I don't want to do that no more. So that shit's a trigger. So when I was dating, if I met somebody and they looked like they were that kind, or after a few weeks I heard them like yell, they yelled at me for some shit, whatever. Yeah, I already knew, like it was like red flag, like I don't want to be a part of that. So
Man, I think the way you deal with the trigger depends on the trigger, right? But I think usually it has something to do with like self-improvement or self-development. So like, because oftentimes like you have to figure out why something is triggering to you. So like for me, or just like if somebody has a certain trigger, right, and you figure out why it's triggering to you, you can then work on that character issue. So if there's something that you see constantly that makes you angry, and you figure out why that makes you angry, well, you get to the heart of why that makes you angry, and you say, okay, why does this make me angry? And then you dig inside yourself to find that reason, and then you correct that. So maybe when somebody comments on your clothes, it makes you angry because maybe you don't have enough money to buy like expensive clothes.
Or when you were a
So-
child, you always wore fucked up clothes, and your parents didn't have money, and then you got made fun of at school. And
Case in
whatever.
point.
Yeah.
And that brings that up for you every time somebody talks about your clothes. So maybe what you do is it's a couple different ways you could respond to that, actually. Because I've seen people respond to that different ways. You can respond to that by making sure you just stay so fucking fresh. Don't nobody say nothing to you. That's one way you can respond to that. I've seen niggas do that. You know what I'm saying? Or you can respond in such a way where you realize unto yourself, you know what? I don't really care what people think about what I'm wearing. And whatever way you reach that conclusion within yourself, whether that's through therapy or talking to other people, or then you fix it that way by fixing that flaw within yourself of allowing it to bother you. So I think it just depends on the trigger. You know what I'm saying? How you deal with it. Cause I know for me personally, to be personal, like a thing that triggers me, like a part of my story is I was raised by a single father. My mom was the one that kind of wasn't really around. So whenever people talk about men generally, but black men in particular being like bad fathers or poor fathers, that is like a trigger for me because I was raised by a single father. So I'm thinking about my dad and I'm like, well, that's not true because I was raised by a great father and I know other people that have great fathers. But a lot of people unfortunately don't. So for me, when I would hear people talking about their fathers who perhaps treated them badly or abused them or whatever, I would get triggered and be like, well, not everybody is like that, or like not all black men are like that, because at the core of myself, what I was realizing what it was I took it as an insult to black men and to me and to like my dad. But I realized it wasn't really that. Just because they had a poor experience with their father don't mean they're talking about
You.
or indicting my father or indicting me,
Right.
or indicting black men in general. It's just their father. So once I learned that within myself, I learned to be like, oh, okay, it's not really a trigger for me. And I can hear that people talk about that without it bothering me now. So I think it just depends. You know?
But you had to get to a point where you realized it wasn't a direct reflection of you or your father. It wasn't you, and it wasn't your father. This was somebody else's thing. But what let me ask you, what do you think had you like internalizing that?
Well, at the core of it, um, it's really my pride as a man, particularly as a black man, and I felt like it was an attack on black men in general.
Oh,
And in a
okay.
world where, obviously,
But you were seeing it from, and you were sitting and seeing it from a different chair though.
Mhm.
Because like in your experience, you're like, well, my dad's here. Like, man, I don't know what the fuck you
and
talking
other
about.
black men as well. Like I was
Well, yeah.
surrounded by black men, my uncles, my father's friends, like my older brother, like many of them. So I was like, well, in my experience, black men were great to me. I was raised by one. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Taught me everything I know. So, but for them, that wasn't their
Did you
experience.
feel like maybe that they were indicting your uncles and
It just
shit
felt like
that?
black men, period.
Black men, period. Okay.
Just all black men, period. And some people do mean it to do that. And then some
Right.
people are genuinely just talking about, well, it's just my father. I'm not talking about all black men or all men in general. It's just my dad.
And then okay, so for instance, and I'm just asking because
Mhm.
you know maybe somebody's listening and maybe this helps. You know what I'm saying, to get a better understanding. So like when this happens, right, and in that moment, are you thinking? Well, clearly you thought it was an indictment on all black men, right?
It felt that way.
It felt that way, right?
Yeah.
So it felt like to you, like, what the fuck, you know
Not
what
to
I mean?
realize it wasn't that. You know?
Okay, so what was that hit you that said, you know, like, no, this ain't everybody, but still, I mean, I just had the thought in my head and it left. Because even though you come to that conclusion, or you know, you come to that reasoning, saying, well, you know what, I in my experience, my fathers, my uncles, and grandfather, or whoever it may be, have been in your life, in your experience, right?
Mhm.
And you say to yourself, "Oh, okay, well, you know what? I'm not gonna feel that way about that because that's his experience, right?"
Mhm.
Do you still like just do you? I'm asking because you know maybe somebody needs to hear it, and maybe I need a better understanding for even my own situations. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
When you separate that and you say to yourself, okay, he's not indicting my people, like my father or my uncle or my grandfather. He's not indicting all black men, right? That's just his situation,
Mhm.
right? That's just his life experience in that particular thing. But where does that leave you in your thoughts, though? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Where does that still? Because there's just because you recognize that shit and you say, well, you know, he ain't talking about me. He's talking about his own experience. But as a human being, I think there's still got to be something there that you go, well, fuck, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
your
no doubt.
conscience. Hell
Just-
yeah, your conscience
just-
fucking telling you.
Just the fact that happened to them. That's all. That's all I feel now. That's all I focus on is their pain. I don't think of anything else other than that because that's what they're trying to express to me is what they went through.
So was it the thought, or in the process that you had that where you come to the realization, like, well, wait a minute, he's not indicting all black men. He's only talking about his own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Does that just completely shut you out of shit?
No.
Do you like where does that take? I mean, because it's one thing to say that, you know, yeah, it's his experience, and maybe you have empathy for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then do you sit back? I mean, how do you like? How do you stop your trigger? How do you stop? I mean, because it's obviously it was more than just you and your personal experience.
Well, for me, it was just the understanding that I can't use my father as the model for all black men because
Okay.
just as all black men are not bad fathers, all black men are not good fathers either.
Right.
Because there are some black men that are actually bad fathers.
But wouldn't that be?
Like, you know
but
what I'm saying?
listen,
So-
but wouldn't that be just men in general? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that's men in
not-
general.
yeah.
But I just mean black men in particular because I'm black and that's my community and that's the
Okay,
people I'm around.
got you.
You know, so that's just what I say out from my own experience. But
Right.
yeah, men in general. There's good fathers, bad fathers of all groups. So
Right.
once I realized that, because I was taking it personal, because I was taking it as like, damn, well, my dad was a good dad, but he's not talking about my father. He's talking about his father. And as
Right.
good of a father as mine might have been, His could have been the exact opposite.
So
of
the
that.
trigger was, the fuck, my dad was fucking dope as fuck.
Yeah.
The fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And my dad also taught me that not all fucking black men are like this.
And then I've known other fathers. I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
that
I'm
was
just
good
saying,
fathers.
yeah.
So I was
Okay.
thinking about all of them, like, man, that's not true. But for them, it is true.
Right.
So
It's their own truth.
That's how I feel about people that have said like, oh fuck that, man, fuck my family. I don't get together with them on the holidays or this or that. And then I've been able to be a part of gatherings where I see like other families and like they're always gathering and they're always together and it's just like, oh shit, that's like, that's their experience is that like family's cool and this other person's like, man, I got like
they feel like they can't trust them. They don't want to be around them.
Yo, I got one cousin, bro. Like,
Yeah.
like shit like that. Now I'm not talking about me, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that experience, like when you get to see somebody being a family or something like.
I've met people like that. I've
Is-
met plenty of people like that.
Like I don't know your personal situation, but like for me, like my family used to gather, and then like now they still gather. But I've seen other families that they're literally together like all the time, like having get-togethers, dinners, and every situation. And so yeah, it's just different experiences for different people. Like
Most definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, it just depends on where you come from. You know what I'm saying? Your environment and the culture that you come from in your environment.
Cultural shit is triggering to some people.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I spoke to
very much.
somebody and I said to them like, "What are you doing after this?" Right? They had came here and they were just like, "Nothing," and I'm like, "Well, what do you like? You go with your family?" Like, no, I got no family. I don't hang out. Like, yeah, no,
That's
my
sad,
holidays,
man.
my holidays aren't filled with people and
Mhm.
shit in it. And yeah, I was just like, damn.
Yeah, that's
Because even though like my family, like we get together when we try, but like when we do it, it's dope, and we're together. And so I hate to hear like other people like, man, I got nobody.
But
like,
you know
damn,
what, bro? On the bright side, bro, that teaches you gratitude because if you do have a loving family that you see, man, be grateful for that. You know
and
what
it
I'm
makes
saying?
me
Like,
feel grateful for what I got. That's what I'm saying. Like I see situations like that where people have no one, and I think like, man, my family gets together. Like we still, my aunt sends out the invite. We have dinner and shit and things
That's
like
love,
that. So shit, I feel blessed.
Yeah.
Hey, I got something we can talk about real quick.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about happy triggers.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. What's something that triggers you to be fucking happy? Like if you were in just like the shittiest mood and something happens and all of a sudden you just the weight of the world is just off your shoulders and you're just fucking happy.
When I run into people in the street that I know at like random places. So
Yeah.
there's been times where like I'll be in Wicker Park and y'all know Subtees in Wicker Park, but like I'll be in Wicker Park walking down the street and like my guy Q will be rolling through in his fucking bench truck like, yo, you know what I'm saying? Shout out Cortez and shit and like things like that, like in interactions with like people that I work with, care about, that kind of shit like makes me happy. And then just like on a personal level that doesn't involve like having to from some getting that happiness through an interaction with someone else, like just on my own, like I don't know, I think like when I think of like fucking like I'll see someone do like dope art and it'll trigger me, kind of like the battle's been triggering people to like be more artistic and be drop songs and do this. Like I think like art triggers me, so like that's a happy trigger. Like I'll see someone do some dope shit and be like, fuck yeah, that's what's up. Like man, I gotta get on my shit. Like I gotta do this, I gotta do that. So yeah, man, those are my happy triggers, like art and seeing people do.
What's a happy trigger for you, Reggie?
Man, it's a couple. I would say food is one.
Food?
It's a
yeah,
foodie.
bro,
It's a foodie.
bro. You get the right thing at the right time, bro. It's just if you've been
You
craving
start
something
doing
for a
that happy
minute-
dance when you eat?
Yeah, or just like
What's your favorite food?
man, that's tough, bro. Favorite food, that's tough. I was really just gonna say like
What genre then?
that's tough,
What's
man.
your genre?
Like
American, I guess. I don't know, barbecue. But I like Italian food and also like Chinese food, but also Indian food. But anyway, I was gonna say, but like food that has a sentimental connection as far as like happy triggers. Like, for many years, my grandmother, from the time I was like little, she would make me a lemon cake for my birthday every year, and I would look forward to that cake literally every year. I would look
Right.
forward to that cake because it was like the best. And my mom, she used to make cheesecake, so every time I used to have those two things, or anytime I have them now, I think of them. So that's like a happy trigger.
That's dope.
I mean, you guys got happy triggers? For real?
Probably just good company,
Mhm.
being around people that I want to be around, and music, and some good
Definitely
weed.
music.
Some good weed.
Some good weed.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Yo, and happy triggers for you?
Music. When I hear good music, like someone who can sing really good. Food. Yeah, I think it's and sports. Sports is always puts me in a good mood.
Oh, yo, I got one more. Video games. If I can, particularly like anything I can play co-op with somebody else, bro, and just have a good time. That takes me back to childhood. Because I remember when I was a kid, and we used to sit up and just play like GameCube or like PlayStation 2 or just like for hours with my brothers and sisters or my friends. So anytime I do that, that's like instant happy, man. I love that.
That nostalgia.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and weed, and like dominoes and spades and stuff like that.
Nah, bro,
that always
Uno?
puts
It's amazing.
that always puts me in a good
I
mood.
love Uno, bro.
Any type of like family type shit.
Okay, now,
Yeah.
so the reason I asked this question, there's a reason behind it. That triggers are associated, and we said this very early on in the show. They are associated with sight, sound, smells. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we know what triggers us, what makes us happy, right? That's kind of like, it's a good question, but it's kind of a tough question, because then you have to ask yourself, like, and you made it very clear. When your grandmother made you that cake, you look forward to that fucking cake, right?
Every year.
Every year.
For like
And so
12
now
years.
the sight, the sound, the smell, the taste of a lemon cake brings you back to those moments, brings you back to shit, good shit for you, right?
Hell yeah.
Brings you back to that moment. Music, video games, it takes you to a place. And that's what triggers do. They take us to a fucking place. You know what I'm saying? And the whole point of this is like, we're trying to figure out what is the trigger. We know that the trigger for Reggie to be happy is that lemon cake, because it takes him to, I'm just grandma's house.
Take me back to grandma's house, man.
And it's not just the cake.
Yeah.
It's the love, the embraces that she gave you, the kisses, the hugs, the everything, and the warmness that you felt inside, right?
Yeah, my whole family. It was on my birthday.
Yeah, but I'm just, you understand what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, for the good triggers, you have that, but a lot of times we don't understand what those bad triggers and where they come from. That's what's the point of asking it. You know what I'm saying? Because we can recognize that shit for the good ones, right? We can recognize it. It's easy. It's super easy. I know that music makes me happy as fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. How did music make me happy? Music made me go into a place where I was in control of what I was doing. Drawing used to like really take me somewhere in my imagination and make me happy, and just, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the adulation that I would get from others when they seen the things that I drew or listen to the music that I make. You know what I'm saying? That shit makes me fucking happy. Or if I make something, I'm just by myself, I don't give a fuck if there's anybody around. I'm happy as shit.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? Because that shit triggers things for me from my past that made me happy as a child. It made me happy to go out.
Good memories.
The memories. It made me happy to go out and break dance and fucking do graffiti and do all of this shit, which music is a part of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even with my bad triggers, right? So when me figuring out what my bad triggers are, I have to go deep and figure out where exactly they stem from.
You know what, man? I got one actually.
Go
That's
ahead.
that's another personal one for me. So, and a lot of minds, are just like a lot of us tend to be culturally specific. Being a black person, from the south side of Chicago. So one thing that triggers me, in addition to the father thing, is, I guess, what you can call like, it's like a cultural issue in the black community about how we talk about black people being intelligent or being like proper or talking white or like being. I've heard some niggas even use the word uppity, like that old slave ass word. I ain't heard that in so long. But yeah, bro, it's crazy. But I've heard that as wild. But basically, because when I came up as a kid, my dad always instilled in us to speak properly. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like talk like, you know what I'm saying? Like speak the language the way it's meant to be spoken.
Right.
And he would always correct us if we misuse words or anything like that. So going to school in the hood, you know, I'm from the South Side, people would always, you know, as when we was kids, oh, you talk white. Or people saying that, oh, you think you're better, or basically the idea that black people shouldn't be or display intelligence, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever people kind of bring that idea, that like is a trigger for me, because I remember all those times when I was like, you know, because I was a nerd as a kid. Like I read a lot of books. I still read a lot. You know what I'm saying? So that whole like nerd thing or whatever, being like a black male in particular, that is like a triggering thing for me. Or it used to be very triggering for me.
Mm-hmm.
It still is like slightly, but I've like mostly addressed that. But yeah, that's like a trigger for me. And so I've learned over the years to kind of not take that personally as well. Like, man, bro, they're not really attacking me or talking about me, or you know what I'm saying? Like that's something I had to work through.
That comes in different, like in that same form, but in also like in another, with another mask on, like when you I don't know, like you have an accomplishment or something, or you like, you know, get your associate's degree
when
or
you come up.
something, and then they'd be like, oh, you got your associate's degree, or you think you're smart, eh? You know, that's the family. It's always, you know,
Yeah,
you think you're smarter than us. So it's always, it's always been that stigma of like,
you know what
you're
that is though,
smarter
bro?
than everybody. I mean, probably like people's own self-reflection of realizing that they're not that they're not that smart.
It's an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
They feel inferior.
Like, damn, this motherfucker's smarter than me, and
Yeah,
like,
they feel threatened by that.
you know, but I personally don't like, so like my cousin, dog, he's in the Chicago Brewing Association, right?
Like beer?
And, yeah.
Okay.
And beer. And I always thought it was like something simple until I really saw it, and like, and what he does on the computer and enters numbers, and it processes all these things, and I was like, dude, this is no light work shit. This is some heavy shit. And then he's smart as hell. And I've always, I just look at it like, man, I wish I was, you know, like I wish I know how to do that. Like,
You like learn to respect his craft.
Yeah, respect that. Like, man, that's what's up, bro. Like he's on that level when it comes to that. Like, he knows how to do that shit. That's what's
dope.
up. Like, yeah, man, I hate like fucking, you know. I know I give heat shit sometimes, but like, man, I just think it's dope. I have a few other friends too that like, they just happen to know a lot about hip hop, and when they talk to me about it, I'm just like, fuck, wow, like, you know, like, damn, where the hell, it just makes me inferiority complex. It makes me feel like, damn, man, shit, I should know about this. Like, why don't I know about, you know, Elsie? You know, why don't I know about, you know, like, so yeah, I think about that.
Yeah, it's natural, man. I think that, you know, everybody kind of does that, you know.
But you still like,
because it's
you just don't hate. Like, dude, I saw a guy with one arm playing basketball and like schooling dudes like on the court. Like, you know, I was younger. I was like 17, 18. But man, dude was like, had mad handles, dog. Like, and he was like going through the legs and shit and doing everything. And I was just like, yeah, man, like, you know.
that's tough.
It's adapting. He was
and imagine
adapting.
what kind of inferiority complex he had playing with players that have two arms, and you know what I'm
and
saying?
he had to overcome that.
And that was a trigger for him. I'm sure every time he ever saw anybody with two arms, it was a trigger.
Come on,
for
man.
him. Yeah.
Man, I don't.
Yeah, dude, that's
I mean, it could be.
possibly. We don't know where he is.
Yeah,
with that,
where
'cause we don't know him, but
But I think he overcame it. Being as he was such a good basketball player, I would assume that in his mind he just said, "Dude, I'm gonna do what I could do."
Sounds like he overcame it to me.
Yeah.
Say he was whooping dudes.
Yep, I'm gonna do whatever I do, and who knows if he went on and what he went on to do, and but yeah, he
God
had that
bless him.
confidence shit.
But I think that's the other side of it, bro, is addressing that in yourself. Because just as I've had people react to me with an inferiority complex, I've had that in myself that I've had to react to. Where I'll hear people's something they're doing, and I'll get envious or jealous and be like, damn, dude, I feel like I'm like not shit right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because of what they're doing is so great. But I also have had to kind of learn to, well, that's not a reflection on myself just because they're a little further ahead or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean that I'm less of, you know, of a person or less of a man or less of an artist or less of whatever. It just means they're a little farther along, and that's okay.
Someone that I know talked about that, and then they were, most of their friends in their circle were, I think he had like a circle of 5, and most of them, like 4 of them, already owned their own homes.
Mm-hmm.
and he was just like, man, I'm just not there yet, you know. Yeah, we're about the same we're about the same age. I'm just not there yet, you know. My life isn't there yet. But
Yeah. And
but that could be a good trigger, right? Because it's like, all right, that's triggering me to get my fucking life
Yeah,
together.
motivation.
Yeah.
Motivation.
You
yeah.
can flip that into motivation, definitely.
100%.
See, that turn it around. Then maybe that's another tool that we could give them. If you're getting some kind of a trigger, man, turn that shit around and use that shit in
As
some
motivation.
in some form of motivation. Yeah.
Right. Because the shit motivated me to get down to the bottom of it and not let that shit affect me anymore.
Can I ask you something? How far do you want to go when you're getting to the root of something, right? Because you said like, okay, I realize what the first trigger is. It's this, and then you want to know what the initial other trigger is. Are you going further than that? Like,
Yeah, man. Because I've always been.
Where
really,
does it stop though?
It
Does it ever,
it'll
does
stop.
it ever
It'll stop when it stops. I mean, I've always been very inquisitive, but to me, like if in my journey, right, in my journey of whatever it is I'm doing right now, you know what I mean, to be a better person and to be a better heat, right? I want to do my best to fix the things within myself. If I fix these things within myself, I'm going to be better to everybody else. Not only better to myself, you know what I mean, and how I move and how I operate and the people that I deal with. I'm going to be better to the people I deal with. I'm going to be better to my kids. I'm going to be better to my significant other. I'm going to be better to my best friend. I'm going to like shit, I might even be better to the fucking dog, you know what I'm saying? But to me, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty of it so I can fix these things, you know, or do my best to fix these things or be aware of these things so that I can be a better person. And the key is because I want to be better, man. I want to be a better person. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better friend. I want to be a better fucking everything. You know what I mean? And in order for me personally, I need to go down that rabbit hole. I need to get down to the nitty gritty of it because also too within that process, I mean, there's people that I got to forgive. Low key, I got to forgive these people. They didn't have the tools. They didn't have the understanding that I have right now. So I got to forgive those people and also forgive myself because a lot of that shit ain't my fault.
And that helps you deal with the trigger.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
100%. But with that being said, man, this shit has been dope as fuck, I think. And I think it's a conversation that needed to be had. And as we do at the end of the show, go around the room and we get the last words. Last words.
Our guest first. Go ahead, man.
Last words. Thoughts on the show.
Reggie.
Oh,
No. We're going that way.
Oh shit, my bad. I wasn't looking over there.
Yeah.
My bad.
I thought this was a real eye opener.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a real eye opener, and don't be too hesitant to talk to someone. Like, open up, find someone that you can open up to, whether it be your pops, your grandpa, you know what I'm saying, your mom, your brother, your best friend. If you're going through something, find someone to talk to.
Word.
facts.
I think another good one for the check-in, a thought-provoking one. A lot of good insight, and yeah, your mistakes don't make you; you make them. You know.
Okay, Reggie.
Yeah, man. Good talk, man. As usual, man. Check-in is always a dope conversation. As it pertains to the topic, I would encourage everybody out there to try to identify, your particular triggers, man, and see what you can do to ensure that they don't remain triggers forever. So,
Nice.
peace.
That's dope. Jizzo.
For sure, man. I really just want to commend everybody for their transparency, man. For you that was on the line, man, and was transparent about your own children and their situations, and you too, Reggie, and everybody that was transparent today. It takes a lot, man, to do that, and I think, yeah, man, that's part of like what your whole mission is with in finding out the root of the situation so that you can fix that moving forward, and all of this counts. So yeah, that would be my advice. Like, confront it, whether it's here on the show or whether it's with a friend or with somebody. Like, speak about those things and bring those up so you can deal with them, and yeah, just don't be scared to talk, man. And that's hard to do. Like I said, I sit here and say, don't be, scared to talk. And I know in a lot of situations I've probably like held back or just decided not to talk. But think about that as a tool moving forward. It'll help. Communication helps. So if you weren't willing to talk about something before, be willing to talk about it now, and fix those situations, confront them.
Word up, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that's been on the show tonight. Always appreciate you, Jizzle. I love you, brother. Reggie,
you.
thank you for being here, man. Love you too, bro.
Love, bro.
Ill
Love.
for real. And our anonymous person, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm going to start by saying, I think the word trigger is overused, but I also believe that it's a real thing. I know it's a real thing because I deal with it and I live with it. I think part of it is understanding the shit when it's happening, understanding what triggers are. And, maybe not everybody needs to go down a rabbit hole and get down to the real nitty gritty of it, but I think it's important to do that, unless you want it to affect you, the rest of your life. I don't know. I just know that being better, you being a better person, you got to dig deep within yourself, because we all been through shit. I've said it a million times on the show. Show me a motherfucker that ain't never been through shit, or say they're the happiest fucking person on the planet, or they're lying.
Show you a liar.
I will show you a fucking liar.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? You can say that you're happy. You can, you can think money makes you happy. You can think whatever. We talked about good triggers. You know what I mean? But, there are bad triggers too. Just understand them and recognize them. Do your best to understand them and recognize them, and then begin to do something about them. Begin to heal. That shit is very underrated. Healing yourself, forgiving others, and forgiving yourself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This has been the check-in, man. It's your boy Heat Detector. We love you. We'll be back next Sunday. As always, we might be a little bit late, but we always on time, man.
Yeah.
We appreciate everybody. Yeah. Y'all be safe out there. And happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mama's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And all of you, like myself and like my co-hosts that have lost their mother. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. Miss you.